So I know some of you might be thinking that season 2 of the Nature Journal show is going to be me in the Galapagos, in Baja, in Ecuador, and all of these other crazy places that I'm going to be traveling to, looking at endangered species, endemic species, cool plants and animals in other parts of the world, and nature journaling those. But actually, I'm going to start off right now, today's episode, with some of these endangered and endemic plants growing right here where I used to live in Sonoma County, California. And these are Pennell's bird's beak. These plants grow on this ridge that I'm on and pretty much nowhere else in the entire world. Just on this one ridge in Northern California, north of San Francisco, about 2 hours north of San Francisco. There's a special geology here. It's a serpentine geology. It's basically like an island for evolution and adaptation of special organisms adapted to this type of soil. Only a few things can grow in this kind of soil. A lot of the things that can grow in this soil are California native plants, and in this particular place is a very special one called Pennell's bird's beak. And this plant grows nowhere else in the world. I'm going to nature journal it right now and show you how to nature journal an endangered species. I can't remember what the federal or state status is on the species, but I'll look it up and add it in the notes below. But this is a very special species of plant, and I'm going to nature journal it right now. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do to nature journal this endangered species is I'm going to capture a little bit of the context and get my metadata. So I'll start with the metadata. All right, so there is my metadata. I have my location. I'm at Bohemia Preserve. It's a private, privately owned preserve with an easement, and there is a part owned by a public organization. So there is some public access. But this is privately owned preserve in Occidental, California. I've got my date. I've got the time. I've got an approximate temperature, a basic weather here, and sort of this basic sketch showing what the land is like. And that's enough for metadata. Now I'm going to do a quick sort of landscape-ito, and I'm going to make it quick because I don't have a ton of time here today, and I want to make sure that I capture some of this endangered species, this very rare plant. So I'm going to make a small frame here for my landscape-ito, my small landscape sketch. This shows the context ideally that the species is living in. Context is super important. This is, you know, a lot of people think, oh, the landscape-ito is just sort of an artistic aspect of nature journaling, but this is scientific information as well. It's showing the context, sort of the ecology of that organism. I smell smoke, but I can't tell. Maybe it's coming from my chair. Oh no, maybe it's coming from my book. Okay, so let me see if I can capture a little bit of what's going on here with the trees without getting too caught up in the details. The boulders are another important part of the context here. So a lot of places in Sonoma County don't have cypress growing like this, so it's also neat to see the cypress here, which can also tolerate the serpentine soils. This spot right here is also famous for mountain lions. That's how I first learned about this spot, is I came for a tracking workshop all about tracking mountain lions, and they really like the habitat here. and many mountain lions have been seen here, including some close encounters. And my friend Cam, who's the land manager here, has gotten some really close encounters and photos of them and some amazing stories of the mountain lions here. There used to be a kids camp here that I worked at, and we also saw a lot of rattlesnakes here, more rattlesnakes than I've ever seen in this part of Sonoma County. So actually I've seen more rattlesnakes on this property than I've seen poisonous snakes anywhere that I have been. So that's kind of cool. I don't think I will see any today because I probably won't have enough time to get out and see any. All right, so that's as much as I can do with my basic sketch there with my gray ink, my Pilot Fudayaku pen, and now I'm going to go to watercolor and let watercolor do more of the work. I'm going to start with my palest value, which should be the sky. These are my Baja colors, apparently. Whoops, I'll have to pick that up later. Oh, there's ants crawling all over me already. I think I might be sitting on an ant nest a little bit here. All right, my other palest value is, oh gosh, the ants are all crawling up my leg. I can't change location right now in the middle of this landscape drawing, so I'm just gonna have to deal with ants crawling up my legs. All right, so I'm gonna use this quinacridone gold for sort of this pale dead grass color. A lot of that dead grass is probably non-native and annual grass. A lot of the California native grass species are perennial, so they come back every year. They come back from the same plant keeps growing every year is what I should say. And the annual grasses are the ones that have to grow from seed all new every year. So you can see there, those are my palest values. I guess I might actually put another pale color here in the foreground for the bare earth. I could start a sidebar where I write down observations, things that I see and hear that I might not include. So for example, I'm seeing a lot of fence lizards. I might do a sketch of one later if I get a chance. And there's a nice one right there. Sceloporus, I think is the genus. So I'll just start a sidebar here. I think that's a good enough spot. Yeah, there we go. The ants are crawling further and further up my legs. So I'm just gonna start that sidebar there. Dang, these ants, man. I guess I positioned myself in a, oh wow, the ground is just covered in ants. Look at that. All right, now that that's dry, I'm gonna go in and do my background color. So I'm gonna get those background trees, which are important. The background trees in this case are sort of like a Doug fir forest, which is pretty common for this area. And I need to speed it up maybe a little bit because I don't have a ton of time here that I can be on this property. So let's try to speed it up a little bit here. I'm going to make them a sort of bluish green color. Not too dark though, because I do want it to fade into the distance, but it should be darker than the sky. And darker than this grass in the foreground that I have here. Alright, I think I'm going to let that dry and start drawing the plants because I want to make sure I don't run out of time and not actually draw the main reason why I'm here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do sort of like a species profile, which if you don't know what that is, it's probably actually a nature journaling technique that you've already used even if you have never heard that name before. So a species profile is when you focus on a single organism and kind of show it from a couple different perspectives, maybe write the name, write some information about it. You could do an I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of with it, but you're focusing on that one organism. So it's probably something you've actually already done, and that's what I'm going to do, focused on this bird's beak. And I position myself in a place where I could see one that has a nice flower on it. Let me see if I can find it again. It's a rather inconspicuous flower, but I did find one that's flowering, and flowers are the most important part of a plant to look like if you're trying to figure out how it's related to other plants. So a lot of people look at leaves and think they can learn about a plant from that, and there's things you can learn, but it's not a really useful part of the plant to look at for identifying it. A lot of times people are like, but the leaves on this one look like some other plant that I know, so does that mean it's related, or does that mean it's the same species? No. Leaves are often a really bad thing to look at, and they can be variable on a single plant. So you have to look at the flowers. So I found one. If you can't find any flowers, then you're out of luck. But if you can find flowers, the reproductive parts, that's the important part to look at on a plant. So make sure you are paying attention to that part of the plant and showing that in your drawing. So I've got one in front of me here. It's a good distance away from me, but I can see it with my close focus binoculars. That way I don't have to sit and trample or pick the flower or anything like that. So I'm going to actually start off with that. I often do sort of a bigger sketch of the plant, but I think I'm just going to dive right into the flower here, and maybe I'll do some multiple sketches of it. Maybe I'll even do multiple sketches of it here at the top and leave space for a title. So I'm actually going to use my Tombow pen here real quick. This is a water-soluble pen. It's also the palest Tombow. It's the 910. It's sort of like a peach color. I'm going to use this peach color to reserve a space for a title here. This is a really useful tool for helping you with layout. You can see it's quite faint, so it won't show up that much later on. I can also sort of plan out sort of my boxes of the way things are going to look. There's a balance here between planning your layout in advance and being able to adapt to what comes up. So I don't want to plan too much. It's good sometimes to go too far with that and see what that's actually like, so you know. All right, now I'm going to come back and look at this flower here. So I'm going to do a couple sketches of the flower here at the top of the page. Ooh, I see some, just saw a red-tailed hawk, so I'm going to add that to my observations here. And I'm not sure, I wish I knew what these bugs are making this sound, these cicada type sounds. Maybe they are a species of cicadas. All right, where'd that flower go? Oh, keep losing it. Uh-oh, lost it again. Shoot. There it is. So drawing while looking through binoculars is a challenging skill. It definitely requires practice. I have a whole video how to draw while looking through binoculars. So check that out if you need help in this department. It's not easy. There's two major techniques that I discuss in that video. One basically requires drawing from memory, which is sort of what I'm doing here. It's really challenging. The other is to hold your binoculars in such a way that you can look through at your subject and look down at your drawing alternately and rapidly without having to move the binoculars too much. And that only works if you're sitting. You can't do that standing up, unfortunately. And it only works if you have the object in a pretty, your subject in a pretty easy to see place, easy to find. The other thing you could do is you could take a quick photo with your phone and draw from that. So I'll show you how that would work, because I did take a couple photos of this plant with my macro lens. So you can see here I have a photo of the flower, nice up and close. I could easily hold that here. However, there is something, as soon as you take your phone out, you could get distracted, and then you might decide, oh, I want to just post this on iNaturalist, and then you might get distracted, so be careful of that. But look, you can definitely get a quality in the photo, and this is using a macro lens clipped onto my camera. I'll post that in a link to that down below if you want to buy one. But it's a really cheap one, but it helps get a close-up of that flower so that you could draw it. So I'm gonna actually draw it now from the photo. But remember, like I said, once you pull out your phone, it's easy to get distracted, so be self-aware. Also, if you're with kids or something and you're trying to model, being a good example, maybe using your phone is not what you'll want to do. So that's up to you. Be aware what the dangers of taking out your phone and drawing from images on your phone. There are benefits too. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of a drawing from here. Some measurements would have been good. This photo is without any reference, so I don't know the size of it from the photo. So that's a little bit problematic from a scientific or quantitative perspective. I'm noticing some things from looking at in this photo that I couldn't see through the binoculars, so that's useful. Ooh, it looks like there's a little bug on there. This is a weird perspective, and it looks like there's a little bit of a bug on there. I think I'll try drawing this sort of challenging perspective here. I'm not really sure what I'm actually seeing in this, which in terms of reproductive parts. I have a couple videos on drawing flowers and learning about the botany and the plant families and nature journaling flowers. Should definitely check those out if you're interested in learning more about some of the reproductive parts. I'm also gonna note here that some of these are from photos. It's good to note that, especially if they're from photos that you did not take. Definitely write down on your nature journal page when you're working from photos you didn't take. I'm also gonna add some description. So I'm gonna write through binos from my photo. From photo. fuzz. Okay, now I'm gonna work on the colors. Oh, I should know who that bird is, but I don't. Sort of an ascending sound. Oh, a hummingbird. I think it's an Anna's hummingbird. Oh, it's flying right over me. Okay, back to the plant at hand. So I'm going to add some color. Color is important for plants. And I'm going to work from the photo in this case. Actually, I'm going to work from, for the first one, I'm going to look through my binos, find it again. Okay, so there's this green base throughout, yellow-green base, serpentine genuine. This color has the same name as the type of geology that is here, which is really cool. And I'm going to go ahead and lay that color down. While I have the color on my brush, I might as well lay it down in all of the places that have it. And it is sort of the underlying color on a lot of this plant. So this is where watercolor is perfect for plants, because a lot of plants have these sort of transparent layers of multiple colors, and getting those in laid down in a transparent way, starting with the lightest ones, is the way to go. So I'm going to start with this green, and the green even goes, even though this plant, you can see in the background, it has quite a red color, almost like it would be a naphthalide maroon is probably the closest color in my palette. There is a green color sort of underlying most of that. So I'll get that in and let that dry completely before I go on to my next color that is on top. Maybe while I do that, I could add some stuff to my little landscapito situation. And in this case, I'm going to add the what I think is basically a naphthalide maroon for the Pennell's bird's beak. One thing I could do is do some color tests, color swatches down here. So for example, naphthalide maroon is quite close to this plant color, so I can just write that out. Naphthalide maroon. Maybe I'll mix it with a little bit of the quinacridone sienna is probably next closest direct match. So here's the quinacridone sienna up here. I think that's what that one's called. Yep, so quinacridone sienna, I'll do a test here. And maybe our plant is right in between these two. So I'm going to mix quinacridone sienna now with naphthalide maroon and see what I get. Probably need to lighten it down a little bit. Perfect. Still a little bit dark, but just mix in more water and I think that would be good. Now this would actually be a great color to write my title out in, but I'm going to wait until I get home to make sure I can spell the plant name correctly. But I'm going to get this a little bit weaker here, and then I'm going to use it to draw in the plants in my landscapito where I see them in the environment. It's a pretty feathery plant, so I don't want to block it in too strong or over pattern it or make it look like a different texture than it really is. I want to try to capture the color, but I also want to try to capture the texture, because I think on this plant the texture is characteristic. This is where maybe having some different types of brushes could be useful, but usually one watercolor brush is capable of quite a lot of different textures if you kind of work with it a little bit. So experimenting with a slightly drier brush could be important for getting a texture. You also want to figure out a way that you can make it fast so you're not spending too much time drawing every individual branchlet or whatever. All right, I think that's probably good. Don't want to overdo it there. Actually, I'm quite happy with that. Don't want to rest on my laurels right now, though. So next I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start adding color to these individual flower drawings. And so I need that same color still. And it's strongest near the tips of these, it seems like. But I think there's a little bit of a fade there, so I might need to clean my brush to prepare for the fade. Gets quite hot at this location. It looks like in some of these, there's definitely variation in how much of the different colors they have. All right, so I'm going to take out my phone again and try to get these colors on these close-up ones a little bit better. So let's see if I can do this. So I'm going to start with this one with the weird perspective. So now I'm going to get my yellow and make sure my brush is really, really clean before I go into yellow. Remember, yellow is the color on your palette that you need to keep as pure as possible. So you don't want other colors on your brush when you put them into the yellow. And that looks pretty much like diluted Hansa yellow light to me. So let me just get a nice diluted Hansa yellow light here. And put that down. Maybe I have too much water on my brush now from doing that dilution process. But I can go over here and get my other yellow spots. I probably should have done the yellow before I did that red color. Ideally, you do all of your pale colors first, especially in places where they're going to touch the darker colors, because when that pale color, if you paint the dark color in first and then you come back with the pale color in a place where it touches and borders that darker color, it can bleed. The darker color can bleed if it's not water. If it's not a staining color, it can bleed into your next color that you put down. So you gotta be careful of that. So I'm gonna look at my other photo here for reference and check these colors. Okay, I think while this one is, while the yellow is drying, I'm gonna be a little bit on the dangerous side and come in with some of my other colors. Actually, I think I'm gonna make the green a little bit more saturated. So I'm gonna use the phthalo yellow green and make this serpentine genuine just a little bit more saturated, at least in a couple spots here. And I'm noticing this thing is actually not. I'm definitely learning a lot more about this flower by drawing it, and I'm noticing that I did this the wrong color. So I'm actually gonna make a note of that. I heard a mourning dove. Okay, now I'm ready to come back, I think, with the purplish red color again. Uh-oh, I hear the car. Hopefully that's not them coming to pick me up. Shoot, that might be them coming to pick me up. I thought I had, like, at least an hour here. Oh, now I'm noticing that the green one, I'm noticing more stuff as I'm definitely learning more about this plant as I work on this. Oh, there's a fly crawling on my face, or maybe it's an ant crawling on my face. Sorry, ant. At least they're not biting ants. Yet. That would make this experience more exciting. I think they might be in my underwear already. So now that I've done a couple of these, I could probably do a better sort of diagram of this flower. I'm understanding it a lot more. And sometimes a diagrammatic drawing is easier to do, less intimidating, and can often be more useful. Because remember, this is what I stress over and over again, is that drawing is a tool for learning and communication. It's a visual thinking tool and a visual problem solving tool. It's not just a form of ornamentation. And so drawing, trying to make a photorealistic painting of this is in many ways just doing drawing as a form of ornamentation instead of thinking of it as a way of learning about something. So what I've learned right now, I'm going to try to apply and do some more diagrammatic drawings down here. Whoa! Did you see that awesome spider? So I'm going to set my watercolor down carefully here, and I'm going to do some diagrams. Wow, look at that spider. Woo! Nature is so distracting. I'm trying to nature journal this endangered plant, and I have ants crawling on me, and then the spider parachuted on to my page. There's also lots of flies, all while trying to nature journal this very, very rare plant species that grows on this hill and nowhere else in the world. Hello, spider. Do you want me to draw you too? Oh, look, you want to climb on my flower. Oh, I'm going to have to draw this flower. I'm going to have to draw this spider. This thing is just too cool. It's laying down spider web everywhere on my page. I wonder how that's going to affect my watercolor going down. Ah, come back. Face the other way. Change directions. Okay. I wonder if this spider is associated with the plant at all. Okay, come on. Come on, come on. I should do a diagram showing how tall the plants are right now. I don't have any quantitative stuff on my page yet. So a lot of them I'd say are about less than 6 inches tall. The tallest one that I see is probably 1.5 feet tall. I hear the car. Hopefully that's not them coming for me. Okay, and now I'm going to try to do a little diagram of the flower based on my new understanding of it. I saw some that were nipped by rabbits, I'm assuming. And I also saw some shriveled up dead ones. So I'll draw a little shriveled up dead one. And where is the one nipped by a... I'm going to draw one of the ones that is nipped by something. I'm not going to assume it could be rabbits. There is rabbit poop here. And it does seem like it does produce a fair amount of side growth after being nipped, and I think that is happening afterwards. It looks like the pattern I've seen on other plants that grow after the main stem has been chopped. All right, so I'm going to add some color to this just to get some color there in the middle, because the color is important information on this plant. That was weird. I thought I heard a bird singing, but I think it was my water brush sucking air back into it. Oh, I should wait for that to dry. All right, that's my page. I'm sticking to it. Nature journaling here. Had about an hour to nature journal, a little bit more than an hour to nature journal this very, very rare, very special plant. This is season 2 of the Nature Journal Show, and I'm already nature journaling some rare and endemic species from California. Haven't had to go to the Galapagos or South America yet, or any tropical forest to find some of these. So what species might you have in your own backyard, and how can nature journaling rare and endangered species make the world a better place? I really do believe that nature journaling can make the world a better place. If you also believe that, then sign up on my Patreon. There's a link right here. Sign up on my Patreon to become a member of the Nature Journal Show community. You'll get access to behind the scenes stuff, special sneak previews, special merch, including stickers and all kinds of things. And you're also helping support my mission to make the world a better place through nature journaling. We have patron only parties. We have a traveling journal. So you get a journal in a journal that goes around, a nature journal that goes around to a bunch of different people in the community, and lots of other things. So saying goodbye from me and the Pennell's birdbeak in this amazing serpentine Northern California ecosystem. Tune in next week for the Nature Journal Show.